We've tended to refer to this as the B plot in history. If Wallace and Mrs. Simpson is the A plot, the one we all know about, the romance or the scandal or however you want to look at it, what is not addressed very often is what was happening in the wings, which was the poor chap who had to take it all on as a result.
My husband is, he's required to speak publicly.
Perhaps he should change jobs.
He can't.
Indentured servitude.
Something of that nature, yes.
Bertie suffered from this, terrible stammer. He obviously hoped, as the younger brother, he was never going to have to be king, and therefore he could probably get away with this affliction. But then, because of the abdication crisis, he has to take on that role at the moment in history when radio has come in as a mass medium.
Poor old Bertie, who never in a million years dreamed that he would be flung into the public spotlight, goes through a pretty dark night of the soul about fronting up to that kind of public responsibility.
He was not equipped in his personality or suited being king in any way, and he knew it. It was more than just a stammer. He was terribly shy, he was underconfident. Physically, he wasn't that strong.
Yearning for a larger audience, are we, Bertie?
He doesn't have the sort of the flair and the confidence that his brother does. And so even prior to the abdication and prior to him having to become king, he's just sort of struggling with the world that he's in anyway.
I can cure your husband, but for my method to work, I need trust and total equality. Here in the safety of my consultation room.
When can you start?
He was a sort of failed, slightly amateur actor, more out of a passion for the language of Shakespeare.
Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York.
Australia would have been a fairly unknown quantity in the 20s and 30s to most English people, and they probably had a slightly, shall we say, imperial attitude towards the Antipodeans.
I'm not hearing the cries of a deformed creature yearning to be king. Nor did I realize Richard III was king of the colonies.
I think the premise alone is pretty compelling. This unlikely relationship between a man who lives in this very lonely and rarefied existence and a man he's very unlikely to meet under any other circumstances.
Please. Call me Lionel.
I prefer Doctor.
I prefer Lionel. What'll I call you?
Your Royal Highness. Then Sir, after that.
How about Bertie?
He obviously feels he can't work effectively if he has to observe all those protocols, if he has to sit a certain distance from the person opposite him, if he has to bow and say Your Majesty or Your Royal Highness or Sir, and all that has to be going on, when in fact he has to break down a few barriers in order to be able to help this man.
I'm not here to discuss personal matters.
Why are you here then?
He kind of pioneered an almost psychotherapeutic approach, that he knew the problem was not simply a physical one, that there was something, mostly around the age of 4 or 5, some kind of trauma within the child that creates stammering.
There was a technical side to it as well, but even that, I think, did something to help break down the formality of their relationship. I mean, it's very, very difficult to continue to keep a distance from somebody if you've been rolling around on the floor with them. Like all relationships which are meaningful, they're not smooth.
What are you doing?
Get up, you can't sit there, get up!
Why not? It's a chair.
No, that is not a chair, that is St. Edward's chair.
People have carved their names on it.
Chair is the seat on which every king and queen...
by a large rock.
That is the stone of Scone. You are trivializing everything.
They have rows and they make it up again, and, we've called it the bromance, which it is. It's a brotherly love story.
Colin's just delightful, It's a thrill to share the screen with him and to watch him. That's one of the great things about being an actor, is actually sort of being in front of other actors while they do their stuff and kind of going, wow. So he's got a really great sense of drama and what's entertaining. There's a lot going on.
The role has enormous dimension and a lot of texture to it, because it's the journey towards becoming a king or becoming a human being in a funny sort of way. And watching him do that has been beautiful, heartbreaking, very powerful. He's just found this extraordinary variation depending on who he's with as a character, you know, how debilitating or how frustrating the level of stammering can become.
I think he's risen to the challenge, and I think it's a truly great performance. This film stands or falls by the amount you care about this guy's fate. Colin's genius is the extent to which he allows you in and allows you to care for him and want him to succeed.
40 seconds, sir.